release of Crown Zenith, the era of the Sword and Shield TCG is officially over, ending with the release of the Scarlet and Violet TCG set at the end of March.
Oh, I love the silver borders.
So with that in mind, we're going to be ranking the best and the worst supporters of the Sword and Shield era. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the channel, PDCGO Store, where you can buy codes with 5% off using the discount code FTW, and PokeXword, a Pokemon puzzle and crossword website. Links to both of these websites are linked in the description down below. Now, let's get going. Right, so we're starting off with Acerola's Premonition. Your opponent reveals their hand and you draw a card for each trainer card you find there. Ultimately, I don't think this is anything good. I mean, it was there obviously for the Mimikyu VMAX deck, and that's pretty much what it's used for. Other than that, it's just not that great. So now I would usually put it in specific archetype because of course it's made for the Mimikyu deck, but specific archetype are for cards that only really work in a certain archetype. Think about Elisa's Sparkle for Mew, right? It doesn't work in any other way, right? You have to play the Fusion type, Fusion Strike archetype in order to actually make Elisa's Sparkle good. It doesn't work in any other deck. And this can be played in other decks, so it's just gonna go in the bin for me. I just don't think it's that great. You know, relying on your opponent's hand to draw cards isn't an effective way to do things, so that's going to go in the bin. Next up, we have Adaman. You can use this card only if you discard 2 Metal Energy cards from your hand, search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Not really specifically archetypal because it's mainly based on types. This is seeing play in the likes of Dialga here and there when it comes to Rogue. So it's definitely better than Acerola, I think, and also just being able to search for any 2 cards is strong. Having to discard 2 Metal Energy though, you got to have a good way to make sure you get those energy. But ultimately, it's okay. I mean, usually you're going to play other supporters instead, like Research and stuff like that, over it most of the time. But as like a 1-of or even a 2-of in a metal deck isn't that bad of a shout. So we're just going to put it in meh for now. Adventures Discovery. Search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon V, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. This card has seen play, especially in Shadow Rider VMAX. When you want to get a bunch of VMAXs out, or just really build a very established board, Adventures Discovery is actually a pretty good card. It's not great or anything down that line, but considering that it has seen some play and still you can see it in some decks today, I think I'm going to put it in. I'm borderline between good and meh. I'm going to put it at the top of meh for now. Agatha. Move up to 3 damage counters from your active Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. These bad boys go straight in the bin. You just play choice spell. You know what I mean? Alistair, draw 3. If you draw any cards in this way, discard up to 3 cards from your hand. You're going to see a lot of draw 3s with additional effects. This is one of the worst ones, unfortunately. So it's going to go into meh. Draw 3 is always just a meh draw support. It's nothing too great. It's not terrible. But unless it has a very powerful effect, it's just not going to see play. And this is going to be one of them. The draw 3 is still solid. Do I put it above Adaman? This is tough. I think we do, because this does have some more specific use cases across the board, like in fluffy decks and stuff, being able to discard from hand. Discarding from hand is pretty solid. I'm going to put it below Adamant, I think. Yeah, because there's another version of this supporter card that's just better. Now we have Arazu. Search a deck for up to 3 evolution Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box. Reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. This is obviously setup based. I haven't played this card myself in single price decks, and that alone should go to show the fact that it's not really that good. Do you know what? It's okay though, and I think I should give this a bit more due diligence, so to speak. It's similar to Adventures Discovery, but with non-rule box Pokemon. The thing is, when you have like non-rule box decks, so you're talking single price decks, right? A lot of them don't really have much evolution going on, apart from if they play like a Bibarel or something down that line. But usually when you're playing Bibarel, you don't have it in a single prize deck most of the time. We're looking at top tier and how things have unfolded over the time of Sword and Shields. Usually it's just been Vs and VMAXs dominating, which is why Adventures Discovery is more relevant. Do you know what? We'll put it here for now. I think it is better than Alistair, just off, yeah, top of the head. I might have to explore this card in the future. You're gonna notice there's gonna be cards in here that you just don't realize exist. Like there's just a lot of cards. There's cards in here that I didn't even know existed. Speaking of, we have Aroma Lady. Draw 2 cards if you do. Your active Pokemon recovers from all special conditions. This is going in the bin, mate. This is a terrible. It's a draw supporter, I guess. So there you go. But no, do you know what? Draw 2 plus effects. What on earth are you thinking? When you have draw 3, this came out in Evolving Skies, by the way. So it's not like it's like one of the first cards that came out and then they improved on the kind of draw plus effect. Draw 2 plus a really a terrible effect. What are you doing? And this is proven by Avery, which came out, I think, before, if not slightly after. I don't know exactly when Avery came out, but I think it was before Evolving Skies. I think it's Chilling Reign, which if I'm correct is before Evolving Skies. Draw 3 cards. If you drew any cards in this way, your opponent discards Pokemon from their bench until they have 3 remaining. This is one of the better draw 3s. It's definitely seen play already in a lot of decks running around trying to disrupt your opponent's bench, and will definitely see more play post-rotation. But we're not going to take post-rotation into account too much. We're looking at the Sword and Shield era, where this card did exist. If a draw 3 was seen play, it was most likely an Avery, if not another one coming up soon. So we're going to put it in good. Ball Guy, what a fun little card, eh? Honestly, it's going in the bin. But I like it, it's fun, so we're going to put it at the top of the bin. For those who don't know, it's search your deck for up to 3 different item cards that have the word ball in their name. Reveal them and put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Oh, great, Bayer. Don't search this up on Google Images. That's all I'm going to say. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck and attach any energy cards you discard it in this way to your bench fighting Pokemon in any way that you like. Yeah, it's gonna go in the bin. It's energy acceleration, but it's too much of a cost. I think it's maybe, maybe below Ace Order's Premonition, but above everything else. Obviously, this did see some sort of play in the Rogue Groudon decks running around, but even Kyogre was better. So, it's just there, mate. It's not the best. Now, this one is interesting. Beauty. If you go first, you may play this card during your first turn. Draw 2 cards. That is quite interesting. However, you're usually going to have to play 4 of these to get the odds of getting that turn 1. Or if you do want it turn 1, you're going to have to find a way to get something like a Luminion down just to get it. And therefore, you're committing a lot of resources just to draw 2 cards. If this was draw 3, this would be really good. But because it's draw 2, it's just kind of dead. Again, a draw 2 card on a supporter is not great. Even though the effect is really powerful, it's not worth it. So this is going to go again with the lots at the bottom. I think maybe, no, there's just no case really going for it. The extra draw 2 on turn 1 really ain't that big a deal, man. Bead. Attach a basic energy card from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. It's gonna go in the bin. It's just pointless, right? I understand a lot of people who maybe are new to the game play this card, but it's just trash. I mean, you're playing your supporter for turn to accelerate an energy without doing anything else, right? There's nothing else going on apart from just accelerating energy, and also from your hand, which is awkward. Maybe not as awkward as something like, from a discard pile, but it's still not really worth it most of the time. And it hasn't seen any play, I don't think, from what I can tell. So it's just going to join, sit next to Bay. At least Bay can accelerate more energy. So we'll just chill it there for now. Bird Keeper. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon if you do draw 3 cards. This card is seeing play now. It's a very situational card. The reason it's seeing play is mainly in Lugia, because of course Lugia has the paralysis issue where it really can't deal with that and it needs switch outs, and sometimes Bird Keeper is the way. So it's definitely, again, one of the better draw 3 effect cards, but it's going to be chilling pretty much next to Avery. I would hedge your bets more on Avery if you was going to do something like this, because of course you can disrupt your opponent a lot more of the time compared to something like Bird Keeper. Like Avery disrupts Palkia, disrupts Reggies, disrupts Lost Boxes even sometimes. It's very, very strong in that regard. Bird Keeper is just okay, if you need to get a switch out and you don't have an option, it's there. But it is one of the better ones. So it's going to go to good, but below Avery. Now, this is a blanc. Draw 2 cards. If you drew any cards in this way, flip a coin. If heads, attach a water energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. This is just bad. And we're going to be using this to also consider the other types. There was the Lightning and the Fire type. Of course, it's from the Pokemon Go set. You don't need to include all of them because they do the same thing, just for the different type of Pokemon. Yeah, draw 2 and then flip a coin just to potentially accelerate energy. That's quite bad. We're going to put it in between, I would say, is it better than Bayer? I think Bayer might actually be better. Yeah, I guess Bayer has some more specific use scenarios. And also, bearing in mind, this Blanc as well, there's another card that you can just play that's just 10 times better. So, anyway, yeah, it's going to go there. It's not great, but you know what? It is what it is. And here we have the boss's orders, baby. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. Ain't it crazy that often the most simplest cards, the most simplest definitions of what they do often are the best. They just do one thing only, and that is crucial to the core of the game. This is without a doubt a staple. Brandon. is next. You can use this card only when it is the last card in your hand. Draw a card for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This one came out very recently in Silver Tempest, and although it has a very strong effect, pretty much a Coleridge, right? You could draw a bunch of cards. It has to be the last card in your hand, which is doable, but it's just not worth it a lot of the time. Because you have, first off, in order for it to actually be really strong, you need a full board yourself, and your opponent needs a full board, so it's going to most likely be late game. And most of that time, you don't really need to draw that heavy. And, you may have some research left over and stuff like that, which is a lot more efficient. This just is so specific that I don't think it's that great, although it is at the top of in the bin. We're not going to let Ball Guy, you chill there, mate. You do your thing, mate. You're at the top always and ever, forever. I love you. Brawly is next, baby. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Rapid Strike Pokemon and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. This suffers the same fate as another card that's going to come up soon. These cards aren't good anymore. The turn 1 rule where you can't play supporter cards has killed these type of set up supporters. These would be so much stronger if you could play them turn 1. It just is bad, right? Of course, it's more about just setting up your board state. And look, even where Rapid Strike decks were good, look at Rapid Strike Urshifu when that was popping off, and even arguably Rapid Strike Inteleon, this card did not see play because it just wasn't needed. And what's funny? It goes to show how powerful these cards could be if this turn 1 rule was removed or revoked. Look at Battle VIP Pass. That's a card with great risk to it, but it's played a lot purely because of its setup potential turn 1. But unfortunately, that aside, this suffers the fate of being in the bin. We're going to put it, I would say, I think even Acerola has a bit more of a play case scenario than this. So we'll put it there for now. Oh, actually, no, we'll maybe go for here. Yeah, we'll do that for now. Pokemon Breeders Nurturing is next. Choose up to 2 of your Pokemon in play. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a card that evolves from that Pokemon, put it onto that Pokemon and evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. You can't use this card during your first turn or on a Pokemon that was put into play this turn. Basically acting as 2 Evolution Incense in a supporter. Yeah, it's interesting, and you could probably see how this may be quite nice from time to time. Let's say you've got let's just be very typical here, right? You've got an Arceus V and a Bidoof in play, and you just want to get them both out very quickly. This is a great way to do that. But that said, 9 times out of 10, if you're evolving into one Pokemon, usually you're pretty fine, and you can find your way through to find the other one if it's truly necessary. Look, it is better than digging for 2 of the Evo Incenses, but often you're just better off doing that, just going for the Evo Incenses, or even just going for the Ultra Balls. There's just a lot of search available where this just isn't necessary. So it's going to be quite rough. I think it has probably more of a use case than something like Bidee or Bidet or Bade. But yeah, I think it's just going to go here for now. Bruno, a very specific draw supporter. Shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 4 cards. If any of your Pokemon knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw 7 instead. The single prize supporter card. Very, very fun in the likes of the Rocks deck, of course, Ludotone and Solrock, or any other single prize deck. I play this sometimes in my rogue decks when looking at single prizes. Is it anything groundbreaking? Not really, because it requires a knockout, and there are other cards that are much better that have much better effects from being knocked out by your opponent. So I think it's going to go into meh, but definitely on the upper end, I think. I would say maybe above Adventure's Discovery. Bug Catcher. Draw 2 cards, flip a coin. If heads, draw 2 more cards. It is just in da bin. The potential to draw 2 at least puts it above that lady. I forgot, Aroma Lady. There we go. See, I even forget the names, man. It's terrible. But it's just bad. Cafe Master. Choose up to 3 of your bench Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a different type of basic energy card and attach it to that Pokemon, then shuffle your deck, your turn ends. Accelerating 3 of any energy into play is strong. Ending your turn isn't that great. Again, if this was like turn 1, it would be really strong. But the fact that it isn't is very problematic. The game's too fast to keep up with this kind of stuff. Now, of course, there is the archetype of the Alcremie, where it allows you to play this without ending your turn, which makes it better in that case. But that said, you can play it outside of it. It's not really required to be played in an Alcremie deck. Do I put this into a specific archetype? Because that's the only time you're ever going to see it. Although, I don't know, you can see it outside of that. Okay, let's take the fact that it can be played in Alcremie into account when we put it in the bin, because it's going in the bin regardless. I would say here. There we go. We'll put it there below Acerola. Caitlyn is next. Put any number of cards from your hand to the bottom of your deck in any order, then draw that many cards. This is kind of bad, right? Because it's not a draw supporter, so to speak. right? You have to have cards in your hand in order to get new cards. So if you have 2 cards in hand, you're not going to want to top deck a Caitlyn, mate. Caitlyn's probably a terrible shout in that regard, right? And even Marnie is far more effective, shuffling the hand to the bottom of the deck and just drawing cards anyway. So it's completely pointless. It is going to go in the bin. I would put it down maybe, if you got a big hand, you can see a bunch of new cards. So it does have that strength going for it. Maybe above, let's say, is Acerola better? I guess Acerola keeps the cards. So I'll say below Acerola. Candace coming out from Silver Tempest is next, baby. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal any number of water Pokemon and water energy cards you find there and put them into your hand. Then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So this, of course, is more for the rogue type. Frostmoth decks is really what you're thinking about here. I don't even think it has seen much going on in that regard there. But being able to look at the top 7 and find both Pokemon and energy is pretty good to a degree, but I guess it's pretty decent. I'm going to go for meh. I am going to go for meh, and I'll put it above Arazu for now, I think. Yeah, we'll put it there for now, where Adaman is. Again, it's not archetypal specific, but type specific, and can be quite good in those decks. So we'll go for meh, but I don't think it's good, right? It's not seeing that much play. And even when you are playing a deck that can make use of this, you're still asking the question. So it's going in meh. Kara Liss. Now, this is going straight into specific archetype. Of course, it's for the fossils. Search your deck for up to 2 rare fossil Pokemon and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So it's just going to go straight into the archetype. And even then, it's okay. If you're playing fossil Pokemon, yeah, I don't know. It's not that great anyway. Sharon's Care. This one is decent. Put one of your colorless Pokemon that has any damage counters on it and all cards attached into your hand. This is going into great. Where this does need to see play, it does. And it is a game changer a lot of the times. This was being played in the Arceus Inteleon deck. Being able to pick up Arceus after taking damage was very, very strong. And can also see play in any myriad of colorless decks. Now, it's not going to be staple because, it's not seeing play in almost every deck. And also even decks that can play it sometimes aren't. It depends on the strategy. But if the strategy is to tank and heal and you're playing colorless, Sharon's Care is an absolute no-brainer. And I think it's going to be very strong in the future as well. Any pick up effect and completely heal is very, very strong. So it is going to go into great in my opinion. And here we have Cheryl. Heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from the Pokemon that were healed in this way. Again, this is going to go into great. Probably greater than Sharon's Care. Again, when it sees play, it sees play, and it is very, very strong. A lot of tank decks playing this to be able to heal off and remove damage counters. Also being played in decks like the Inteleon Rapid Strike. I can't think of any particular top tier deck literally offhand that really likes to play this, but it has seen play a lot of times in the top tier here and there. So it's definitely going to be in great, that's for sure. Chili, Sillin, and Cress. Search your deck for up to 3 Fusion Strike Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. This one's interesting, right? Because it actually would be decent, in my opinion, in a Fusion Strike deck, right? Just as a one-off, being able to just search for like 3 Genesects or like 2 Genesects plus a Mew VMAX or anything down that line seems kind of fun. But a lot of turns when you are playing supporters, it's either Elisa Sparkle, a Marnie, or a Judge, or you're going to be playing Boss's Orders. So a lot of times you don't really need to play this because you can set up without it anyway. The amount of draw available, you're going to access your Battle VIP passes very quickly and just access the cards you need. So I understand why this isn't even seeing play because the archetype is so strong, draw-wise, that it doesn't need this little extra boost, even though it is a pretty decent card. So it's going to go into specific archetypes. Of course, it's only for Fusion Strike, but it is on the better end of it. Toy. This is a card I didn't know existed. Each player reveals their hand, draw 3 cards. It's one of the worst draw 3 cards. Obviously, you get to see info on your opponent's side of the field, but you're also giving your opponent info, so it doesn't change much to the game state at that point, because you both know what's going on. So it doesn't give you any sort of particular advantage, and it's a draw 3. I'm going to put it maybe on the top of in the bin. Even though it's draw 3 and I kind of think they're all a bit meh, I just think this one's so pointless. Like even Hop is better in that regard, right? Because at least you're not giving away info yourself. This is where you zoom out because we're actually getting so full right now. Oh god, this is a big tier list. Horus's Experiment. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put 3 of them into your hand and put the other cards into the Lost Zone. Now, you might think this is going to be a specific archetype, right? Because it's for Lost Zone decks. But this has seen play outside of Lost Zone. It has seen play in Arceus Goo. Goodra, Arceus Duraludon. It is seeing play outside of the Lost Zone. It is that good. Is it staple? Well, no, because it's not seen play in every deck, or not expected to see play in every deck, but it's definitely the top of great. It is one of the better supporters we have in the format. The fact that you can look at top 5 cards, it doesn't matter if you're putting 2 of them into the Lost Zone so much. You get to at least choose, and that's far better than drawing top 3, and it actually can be better than Marnie's in some regards, because sometimes you want to draw a lot of cards without getting rid of any cards in your hand. Cobras is the perfect build your hand supporter card. So it's definitely going to the top of great. And then we have Cook. Heals 70 damage from your opponent's active Pokemon. Just let him cook, bro. Let him cook. Let him cook. Okay, yeah, whatever. It's just heal. It's not as powerful as Cheryl, because Cheryl, of course, just heals all damage and really supports the tank archetype. It kind of is pointless in that regards. You know, if you need to heal, there's other options available that are just much better. So I think putting it down here is probably a bit more correct, I think. And we have Copycat. Shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw a card for each card in your opponent's hand. Again, relying on your opponent's hand. Granted, this would be pretty cool against Lost Box, because Lost Box draws massive hands. But usually you'd rather play something like Amani to disrupt them and make their hand smaller rather than you just draw a bigger hand. So it's ultimately, again, in the bin. There's a lot of cards going in the bin, isn't there? I would say, again, up here with these weird draw supporters, probably... Oh gosh, look, if your opponent has a bad hand, you have a bad hand ultimately by drawing this. So yeah, it's gonna be there with Caitlyn, I think. Silene. This is a card that I've seen play here and there. Flip 2 coins. Put a number of cards up to the number of heads from your discard pile on top of your deck in any order. Now this is going to go in good because it is seeing play, but only in specific decks. So it's seeing play in Mew as a one-of, and it's also seeing play in the Mewtwo Stall deck as a loop effect with Battle VIP, not Battle VIP Pass, Jesus Christ, with Pal Pads. So it's definitely going to go up there as like a card that's seeing play for sure, but is only in specific decks and has specific use cases. But it is, again, really good. Oh, but is it better than Sharon's Care? Oh, I don't know. If we're basing on how often it's seen play, it is better than Sharon's Care. But with regards to its actual effect and how good it is when it is used, I think Sharon's Care is better. So I think we're going to leave it there. Maybe we put it at the bottom of good? Oh, I don't know. Do you know what? No, we're going to put it at top of good for now. That's a difficult one, though. Cynthia's Ambition. Well, this is obviously going to go next to Bruno. Draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. If any of your opponent's Pokemon knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw cards until you have 8 cards in your hand instead. Now, there is the obvious debate. What is better, Bruno or Cynthia's Ambition? And ultimately, I think it depends on the type of deck you're playing. If you're playing a deck that likes to draw a lot of cards into its hand and build up a hand, Bruno might be better because, of course, if you have a big hand, Cynthia's Ambition is absolutely pointless. If you're quite discard heavy, if you like to keep your hand low, then Cynthia's Ambition makes more sense. So I think it depends on the deck you're playing. I do naturally prefer Cynthia's Ambition myself, but I think they are just ultimately the same. So although, you know, regardless of how I order it here, I see them as next to each other rather than one above the other. Oh God, this one's terrible. It is Dan. Danger Dan, the Garden Main. Draw 2 cards. You and your opponent play rock, paper, scissors until someone wins. If you win, you draw 2 more cards. I'd love to make a format where you can only play draw 2 supporters and just see how the game runs. Just be funny. It's like the only draw cards you can play are draw 2. Let's see what happens. This is just terrible. Absolutely terrible. At the bottom of in the bin. It's fun. No, do you know what? I would say it's better than Aroma Lady. At least you get the odds of drawing more cards. It's funny, but no, in the bin straight away, mate. Dancer. Draw 2 cards. If you go second and it's your first turn, draw 3 more cards. Kind of decent on the second turn, right? Just a straight draw 5, but again falls into that pit of like, right, you have to play 4 of them to guarantee it, or you have to search for it specifically. And a lot of times you're just better playing Corvus Experiment at that point if you want to just get a draw 5, effectively speaking, right? Because a lot of times you're drawing 5, you don't need all 5 cards. So it's not seeing play, even though the effect is pretty decent. I think it's going to go more down the line of maybe even above Copycat, because it's not relying on anything. It's just like, right, if you get it then you get it then. Plus you can't Luminium for it. It's decent, but yeah, again, just falling into that awkward draw support area of in the bin. Digging Duo, the last supporter ever released. This is the only one that came out in Crown Zenith, if I'm correct, that is new. Flip a coin. If heads, look at the bottom 8 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand. If tails, look at the bottom 3 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. First off, it's a flip a coin effect. Not that great. Second off, drawing from the bottom of the deck isn't that decent. Don't get me wrong, you could Marnie a card that you need to the bottom of the deck and you could play this the next turn. Look, I don't think you're good. It's not seeing play initially. It could see something in the future. Yeah, this isn't that great, I don't think. This would have been great with Instructor and Guru, but other than that, there's no reason to look at the bottom of your deck and get certain cards. You could argue you played a Marnie and you want to get a card from the bottom of your deck and this is going to be your outs to get it. That's very specific niche scenarios. So I'm just going to put it maybe above Cafe Master. I guess it has more of a use case than Caitlyn. No, Caitlyn can get you the big hands. Okay, we'll put it down here. Doctor. I didn't know this card existed. Draw 2 cards. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon VMAX, draw 2 more cards. Pretty much a dead card now. And it didn't even see play when it was more likely to be good. Effectively draw 4 of the VMAX in the active. Yeah, it's just completely terrible. It's, again, going into that kind of draw 2 scenario. I guess considering VMAXs are more common, it is better than something like the other draw 2 supporter cards. So I guess that has that, but, that's not really a good shout for it, really, is it? At least it's Sparkle. Specific archetype in the top. There's no argument about that at all. For those who don't know what it does, choose up to 2 of your Fusion Strike Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a Fusion Strike energy card and attach it to that Pokemon and shuffle your deck. Just being used in Mew all the time. It's very strong with Meloetta. Yeah, no-brainer. It would even be up in the greats for sure, but considering it's only for that archetype, it's going to go here, but at the top. Fantina is next. You can use this card only if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. During your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 120 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V. This has not seen any play at all, and although it has a very strong effect, I don't know how necessary it is. I mean, if you're going to 10 cards in a Lost Zone, maybe it could be decent to kind of allow something like a Giratina to tank for a turn, but a lot of the times you just want to continue drawing your cards and, building that hand so you can play to your outs and get the win that you will need to get. Whereas Fantina's just going to sit there and make you tank a bit longer. I guess it can buy you a turn, but that's really it. It'd be really strong in Goodra, right? Goodra's like, let me just sit here and just take 200 less damage from attacks on top of it. But again, it just hasn't seen play because it's not really seen as necessary. So we're going to put it up here, probably where the Brawly is and stuff like that. Again, just one of those cards with a decent effect, but just isn't needed. All right, we have Flannery here now. Discard a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon and discard a stadium in play. Seeing play in a lot of disruption decks. And of course, one of the only effective ways to discard special energy available. Other than, there's the Fan of Waves that throws it back into the deck. And there's also Crushing Hammer, which is to flip a coin. So it's pretty good. And also, we're in a very heavy stadium meta, very strong to get rid of the likes of Path to the Peak. It has seen play here and there, as I said, in disruptions. So we're going to go ahead and put it in, I would say maybe in the top of Met, maybe even good, because where it does see play, it is very strong. But again, it's very specific use cases. I'm debating here, I think it's going to go into the top of Meh, I think. Oh, no. Bottom of good. We'll put it bottom of good for now. Now we have Furisode Girl. The only thing this is notable for is the fact that it broke PTCG Live. Other than that, it's just not seeing any play. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it into your bench, then shuffle your deck. You may switch that Pokemon with your active Pokemon. No, it's just not good. It's just not good. We're going to put it probably below Brawly. Even Brawly probably has a bit more of a use case scenario. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it there for now. Also, didn't even realize that Brawly is specifically an archetype for the Rapid Strike. So that has to go into archetype. Yeah, okay, we'll put it here. I forgot about that. Gardenia's Viger. Oh my God, living in Welder's shadow forever, my friend. Draw 2 cards. If you drew any cards in this way, attach up to 2 energy cards from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. It is just not good enough, unfortunately. A very decent effect. The draw 2 is trash, but it definitely is on the upper end, and where it can see play, it does, but even then, it's arguable. If a deck needs to play Gardenia's Viger, odds are the deck isn't that great in the first place. Like, even Reggie Drago is opting out to not playing this most of the time. So, goes to show how much of a disappointing card this has become, unfortunately. But it definitely is the better of the draw 2s plus effect. So, it's going to go, it's better than Bead, it's better than that, probably better, yeah, better than that. I would say probably up here. Maybe, no, sees more use case in that scenario here. Maybe, no, there. I think on the upper end of in the bin. It's very strong. Ball guy, though, you're holding ground, mate. You're gatekeeping him. You're the one stopping him. Gloria, suffering the same fate as Brawly. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon that don't have a rule box and put them onto your bench. Then shuffle your deck. Would have been fantastic in an era where we didn't have to play supporters Wait, that made no sense. It would have been better if you could play supporters turn 1. That's what I was meaning to say. But unfortunately, no. It's just not that good. It's not seeing any play at all. It's basically Bridget, of course. And yeah, we knew how great Bridget was, but unfortunately, it's just going to go here for now. Geordie! Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal any number of energy cards you find there and put them into your hand, then shuffle the other cards back. It's just not good. I mean, just specifically for energy cards? Not really. You could play Lady. Lady gets you just 4 straight energy cards, and even that's not seeing play. This is going in the bin completely, my friend. I would say even down here, like, it's just there's so many better outs for finding energy. There's just no place for this card. Grant. Now, this one's interesting. During this turn, your fighting Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. During your turn, if this grant is in your discard pile, you may discard 2 cards except for any grant from your hand. If you do, put this grant into your hand. Effectively allowing you to reuse grant every turn by discarding 2 cards from your hand. Adding an additional 30 damage is decent. It's definitely going to go in meh because it has seen play in the likes of Arcanine. I've played it in my what is it called? The Claydol there. The Claydol deck that requires no supporter cards. Definitely has some interesting stuff that is fun. Is it better than Gardenia's Viger though? Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I mean, as a one-off in fighting decks, it's almost like a no-brainer a lot of the times. So we're going to put it in meh. The ball guy has let him pass. Gym Trainer now. Draw 2 cards. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, then draw 2 more cards. A draw 4 for being KO'd is kind of rough, because if you have both Bruno and Cynthia's Ambition, which have much more powerful effects. Granted, Cynthia's Ambition is draw 3 more cards, but you can draw until you have 5 in your hand if the knockout hasn't taken place. Bruno shuffle draw 4, which is probably worse. No, I'll say that's better than just straight draw 2. So it's definitely one of the worst ones. So it's definitely going to go in the bin. That's for sure. We're going to go ahead and put it maybe... I would say maybe it's better than Ace of Roller. I mean, it's still decent in that regards, right? Okay, I've just made another change to the zooming and stuff. It's hard to manage this, but hey, we keep moving. Now we have Honey, another card I didn't know existed. Draw a card for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon V. Kind of cool, very, very strong against something like a Mew, but other than that, that's kind of it. Depending, again, it's similar to like the Copycat and stuff, depending on your opponent to draw is quite rough, and if they're not playing any Vs, again, it's quite bad. I'd say it's probably one of the worst ones, actually, now that I think about it. Because usually when your opponent is playing V, they usually have like 2 or 3, and then it's just like draw 2, draw 3. Very bad. So yeah, we're going to put it there in the bin behind Caitlin. Hop, this is just going to go straight into meh. It is the most basic card there is. It's given away, obviously, in every like starter deck that you ever play or anything down that line. Just a straight draw V, draw 3. There's just no questions asked, mate. It's just meh. Oh, we have a reader now, baby. Search your deck for a water Pokemon and an item card, reveal them, put them to your hand, and shuffle your deck. Who knew this card would be so strong? Very, very, very strong because of the Inteleon engine. This card is only really strong because of that specific purpose. Also being played in likes of Cure and Palkia, which also did dominate at one period of time. But just a staple for the Inteleon engine, and also a staple for the Palkia deck, which definitely throws it into great, even though I've said staple, it's not played in every deck all the time, and not regarded as a must-have in decks, right? Something like an Ultra Ball is also considered something like a staple. So it's going to go into great, definitely above the 2 Cheryl and Sharon's Care, but I would say on par with Cora's Experiment, are just as good as each other, just for different types of decks. Iscan is now next. Draw 2 cards. If your active Pokemon has Hisuian in its name, draw 2 more cards. If you're playing Hisuian cards, then I guess you're getting a really decent draw 4, but that time, again, you're better off playing Cora's Experiment. But hey, draw 4 when you're playing Hisuian cards is good, but is there any really strong Hisuian cards apart from like Zoroark or anything down that line? I guess Goodra is also the Hisuian variant, if I'm correct, but you're not always playing a full Hisuian deck, so there's a lot of times you're going to have an active Pokemon where they're not Hisuian based, so again, it's kind of a give or take. I think it's going to go up here with these decent draw supporters, maybe even just below Gardenia. No, that said though, it is archetype, isn't it? Hisuian isn't really an archetype, but I guess in some regards, I don't know, is it? No, we'll put it here. We'll put it here. Judge. Okay, this one is going into good for sure. Arguably great, but during the Sword and Shield era, it really didn't see much going on for where it was about, but only recently now it's starting to be seen as a decent card because it's the only real effective way to disrupt a hand without drawing from top deck. So if people play Oranguru, they can make themselves protected from Marnie. Judge prevents that. And, oh, it's a little burpee. And that's why it's being seen as pretty decent nowadays. It's definitely in line with the likes of Avery and Birdkeeper. I'm just going going to throw it there in the middle because I think Avery has seen a bit more here and there, and Judge is starting to come to its own a little bit. Now we have Kabu. Shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4 cards. If your active Pokemon is your only Pokemon, you draw 8. Seen play in the single big VMAX tank decks, such as Arctozolt, Stonejourner, stuff like that. But nowhere else has it seen play, of course, because you need to have only one Pokemon in the active to really make it good. But it has seen play there, so it definitely has to go into meh. I would say maybe up here. I think that's probably where... Is it better? It's in line with Adventures Discovery for me, I think. Kamado. Choose a card from your hand and discard the other cards if you do draw 4 cards. This is kind of bad, right? If you have a big hand, you're discarding a ton of cards, mate. Choose a card in your hand and discard the other cards. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's cool because you could just thin out your hand while keeping one and then top deck 4, which is decent, but it's just not been needed. I would say it's up there when it comes to the effects of draw supporters. I would say maybe even... Here, there are scenarios where it could be good, but again, it's so specific and niche, so it goes up here with these lot. Karen's Conviction is next. During this turn, your single strike Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has taken. Damage modifiers in a supporter card has seen play here and there. Look at Grant. Leon is also one of them that we might look at soon. But again, just not really that necessary. Only seen play where numbers really are that important. But other than that, it's just, again, pretty dead. So I would say maybe around about here or here. Yeah, I think that's all right. Kindler, the one card that a lot of people thought was going to be good, but just turned out not to be. You can use this card only if you discard a fire energy from your hand. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck and put 2 of them into your hand and shuffle your deck. Pretty similar to Candace, I would say. So it's in meta, maybe above that. Kind of following the, specific type supporter cards that you played in a certain deck, like Adamant with Metal, Kindler with Fire, Candace with Water. All meh, but, again, there's other cards that just do better in that regard. Clara, oh yes. Choose one or both. Put up to 2 Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand. Put up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. This is going to go in probably good, maybe arguably even at the top. Because of the fact that, you had that Inteleon Galarian Moltres deck that did very, very well during its time. And Clara was the piece to that puzzle. Similarly with being able to recover Charizard and stuff once it got KO'd. Being a very, very strong supporter where it did see play. Granted, not seeing play all the time, but when it did, it was critical. So definitely going to the top of good in my opinion. Karina's Focus. Draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand. Another interesting one. Archetypal based, you could say, because it's Rapid Strike and only really saw play in Rapid Strike. Not really seeing play elsewhere, but the fact that you can play it elsewhere means it doesn't really fall into this specific archetype category. So it is going to go into meh. I think that's probably more of an appropriate way to take into account. Maybe it goes above Adamant. I think it does because, if your hand's thinned down and you do find this card is pretty good, and it is better than Sylvia's Ambition, Sylvia's Ambition base effect, but Sylvia's Ambition is better because, of course, you can draw 8 after a knockout. So I think it's going to go in there, I think. Lady, we've already brought this one up before. Just look at your deck and find 2 basic energy cards, and that's 4 basic energy cards, and that's it. So we're just going to throw it in, I think, maybe even in the bin. I mean, I guess in some decks you could use it with, no, do you know what? Ball Guy's going to keep it at bay, all right? Ball Guy's making sure the top of the table is respected. So Lady's probably going to go in with, maybe on Karen's, is it necessary? But the more I think about it, the worse it gets. I think here with the Furioso Girls and is it Catarina, I think it is again? Yeah, sure thing. Lance, an Adventures Discovery, basically for Dragon Pokemon. Yeah, this has clearly been printed for Regidrago V-Star, and even then Regidrago doesn't play it. So it's definitely going to go in the bin. Maybe with, let's think, where could this go? I think with the Nurture's Breeding, something like that, around there looks about right. So yeah, I think we'll do that for now. Maybe on top of it. No, I think Nurture's Breeding is probably better. Yeah, let's leave that there. Professor's Laventon, just like Dan, one of the cards that is just not good enough to even see a full art printed. Put up to 3 Pokemon that have Hisuian in their names when you discard power into your hand. Funnily enough, in the Hisuian archetype, even though I guess you could play Hisuian cards not in its own specific archetype, it is pretty solid, right? Recovering 3 Pokemon straight from the discard pile can be very strong, but it just ain't. It's just not necessary again. I would say maybe, is it better than the draw 2 cards? I think it is. Similar to that, I think if you're playing a bunch of Hisuian cards, it is pretty strong. But is it needed though? That's the question. I think it's going to go here. Above Cook, below BDDD. League Staff, another one without a full art. Draw 2 cards. If Wyndham Stadium is in play, draw 4 more cards. Very specific, needs Wyndham Stadium in play. Wyndham Stadium, I think, is if you evolve from V to V max, you heal 100 damage, but just again, hasn't really been necessary a lot of the times, considering the fact that you're most likely going to have your V maxes out before they take any damage most of the time. So again, it's just kind of trash. I think it's going to go straight into the bin. Is it better than a lot of these other draw 4s? Yeah, it is a draw 4 ultimately, which is okay, but yeah, I think it's going to go here with Doctor. Oh, Leon, during this turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage. Just a straight 30 more damage. I'll probably partner it with Karen's Conviction, I think, because although it's good in an archetype like Charizard, it can be played elsewhere, and in that regard, you know, it's okay in sometimes. It did see play once in Gengar when Fusion Strike came out as a means to deal, to help it do that extra little push of damage with the Choice Belt. Or was it because we didn't have Choice Belt back then? I don't remember. Regardless, it's going to go next to Karen's Conviction. Maybe a bit more utility in that regard. So there we go. Marnie's Pride. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. This is going behind Bidet, because Bidet at least does it from hand. You don't have to have it in a discard pile. Whereas Marnie, you have to have it in a discard pile, which is an extra step for the same effect. So it just makes it worse. Now we have Melanie here, obviously going straight into Great, my friend. Very, very good with the water decks that it does partner up with, and even seeing some play here and there. I don't know if it's in the top tier or just in general, but like, you know, I've played it many a times myself where, you know, you don't really need to have water Pokemon. You can't just have water energy and be able to charge up other Pokemon nicely with this. But, you know, where it's needed to see play, it has seen play. So it's definitely going to go up into Great. Is it as good as a Reader? I think it's probably as good where it's needed. So it's just going to go up there, I think. A very, very strong draw 3. Being able to attach a water energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon V and allowing you to draw 3 cards. Milo, an interesting one. Discard 2 cards from your hand and draw 2 cards for each of the cards you discard in this way. Another draw 4 supporter, which definitely had a look in at some point. I remember one point where this was actually in discussion to some degree. So it definitely has to get some points for that at least. And I'd say it's definitely better than the likes of Choi, maybe even Iskar. So it's up there at the top of in the bin, I think. Milo's pretty solid. Misfortune Sisters, being specific, so to speak, for the Disruption archetype, but can see play outside of it. But because it's very good in the Disruption archetype, I'm just going to put it at the bottom of good, I think, and we'll leave it there. Rapid Strike Mustard, baby. You can play this card only when it's the last card in your hand. Put a Rapid Strike Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench and draw 5 cards. Why does it have to be from the discard pile, man? Why? It just really causes that kind of problem. And it's not many Rapid Strike Pokemon that you want to get from your discard pile a lot of the time anyway that can cause some real damage straight out of the bat. So unfortunately, unlike its counterparts, which we'll look at next, it's just going to go in the bin. It's still strong, so maybe at the higher end of in the bin, I think. I would say in its specific use case, probably better than Milo. The Rapid Strike Mustard. This one is going to go into good for sure. Seeing play in the likes of Arceus, Beedrill, seeing play in the likes of Arceus and Duraludon. There we go. Got that there. So it definitely has seen meta play, which definitely has to put it into that good category. But again, very specific use case scenarios compared to something like Flannery and Misfortune Sisters, which are very strong in their own archetypes, and the other ones being although, again, specific use case, still very strong where they are needed. Whereas Rapid Strike Mustard is Single Strike Mustard is a bit more of like, right, if you can play it, you play it, but it's not a must. So it's definitely in good, but on the bottom end of it. Oh, Nessa, one of my favorites. Put up to 4 of any combination of water Pokemon and water energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. This is really fun when you're making decks that I like to make, like loop decks, being able to reuse Greninjas and Blastoise, Radiant variants just every turn by recovering them and bring them back into play with Frostmoth. A very, very strong card in Frostmoth decks. So it's definitely going to go into good. Probably better. Yeah, it is better than Candice because, of course, it's recovery, which is far more useful than search because you have so much search cards available where you don't have as much recovery. So definitely going to go in there. I would say probably in the same boat as Single Strike Mustard, I think. Again, just seeing, one play usually in its archetype. So there we go. Next, we have Alenia. She likes Delania a lot. Right, you can play this card only if you discard 2 other cards from your hand. Your opponent reveals their hand, put a trainer card you find there to the bottom of your deck. It's just not seen any play, and it's just not good. So it's just going to go in the bin, I think, down here. It's just not good, mate. Opal is next. Flip 2 coins, search your deck for a number of cards up to the number of heads, put them into your hand, and shuffle your deck. I mean, it's a coin flip, but it also just guarantees any card, which is, I think it's going to go into meh. I think. You have a, so was it a 75% chance, if I'm correct, to just get one head and then just search for any card? Look, it's not good, right? But I never said it was good. It's just in meh, maybe even the bottom of meh. But hey, there are some scenarios where you could come in with this and just clutch. So you got to give it, I don't know, but is Gardenia's Viger better? Rapid? Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, I've knocked it down a nod. Yeah. Okay, it's going there. It's going there. Peonia. Put up to 3 prize cards into your hand, and then for each prize card you put into your hand in this way, put a card from your hand face down and as you play. So really, I didn't read that properly, but basically just take 3 prizes and put 3 prizes back from your hand, right? So really good in the Union decks and decks that really like combo heavy pieces that can be prized. We do have heavy ball out here, kind of making this obsolete to some degree to a lot of decks that play one of basics, particularly the Radiant Pokemon. But it has seen play, so we have to give the devil its due. But I think it's probably going to go in meh. Just because it's seen play doesn't make it suddenly good. Look, Adventure Discovery saw play, so I think where it was necessary, it was decent. I think on top of Candace. Maybe, no, on top of Kindler for sure. Another one here, Peony. Discard your hand and search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards. Reveal them, put them to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. Used to see play a lot in Mew. When Mew first came out, this was the card that everyone wanted to play with it until they realized they didn't need to. So it did see play, and also sees play in Arcanine, being able to just, if you just want to get rid of your hand, it's very good at doing that. So obviously, research is better, but it's definitely going to go into, I think it might go into meh, in the top end of meh, because although it did see play, it was discovered quickly to be useless at the time for the deck it was seeing play in. And that definitely knocks it down a peg. But we're going to leave it there, I think. Phoebe is next. During this turn, damage from your Pokemon VMAX's attacks isn't affected by any effects of your opponent's active Pokemon. So it basically allows your VMAXs to go ahead and shred, effectively speaking. Although this has seen some sort of look here and there where Miltank came into the pool, so to speak, other than that, it's really not seen much play from that point onward. So it's just an additional effect, which is decent, but nothing too crazy. So we're going to put it probably up past, I would say, probably past Leon. Piers, this one saw play, I think, during the Eternatus era, where Eternatus was dominating. Funny enough, I didn't play during that time. But, if you're playing Eternatus, Piers is never a bad shout. It's good, but it's going to go to the bottom, I think. Pokekid, search deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. This was out before Ultra Ball, so people even looked at this way of finding it, like, sitting there going, right, okay, this is our only way to guarantee a Pokemon. But now Ultra Ball's been out and stuff like that, even when it was really necessary to be played to guarantee any Pokemon, even then it really saw it. So it's just, again, a pretty terrible card, unfortunately. Although it's very simple, it just ain't it, Chief. I'd say Cook and Agatha, I'd say these are definitely better. But it's going to join Dan. Yeah, Danger Dan, why not? Pokemon Center Lady is going to go above Cook because although Cook heals extra damage by 10, Pokemon Center removes special condition, which can be more useful. So it's just going to go there. Oh, this tier list keeps getting bigger and bigger. Professor Burnett, search your deck for up to 2 cards and discard them, then shuffle your deck. It came out when the unions were coming out, and also, funnily enough, it works quite well with Lugia. Although it's clearly not too necessary, I'm going to put it in good. No. Do you know what? We'll put it in meh. I think we'll put it in meh, maybe on top of Kabu, because where it does need to see play, it does. But ultimately, it's not really fully needed, unless there's a deck that comes out in the future. But even then, that will be post-Scarlet and Violet. We're not judging it based on that. We're judging it based on how it did in Sword and Shield. And I'd say meh. Raihan, this one is going into great at the top. Is it staple? Oh, gosh, I don't know. I think it's going to the top of great. Yeah, it's going to go to the top of great. You could play this card only if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. If you do, search your deck for a card and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. Accelerating energy and getting any card is absolutely massive. So we're going to put it in great. It's seen play a lot of times in the top tier, and is still walking about and running around. So definitely going to go into great in my opinion. Although, is it better than Colress? Oh, it's arguable, isn't it? Oh, I don't know. I think yes. See, now we're getting into the good stuff. Professor's Research. This one is interesting. Is it a staple? For those who don't know, it's just discard and draw 7. Is it staple or is it great? Because whenever this card is around, it has always been considered a must-have in all decks because it's the best way to see the most cards in one turn. But there's decks that are just sitting there going, right, we're playing 3 of these, 2 of these even in some, over another supporter card, which clearly is actually looking to be better. I'm going to argue staple. It's so crazy that was, to be fair though, actually during the Sword and Shield era, it definitely was a staple for most of it. So, okay, that's fair. I think, yeah, it's going to go staple because of that. I'm more thinking recent times, but generally, yeah, it's been a staple, right? So, but there's another card coming up that really is debatable as to whether or not it's going to overthrow research in its power. Where's Marnie? I have just noticed that I don't think I included Marnie in this list. How did I forget Marnie? What the hell? Marnie's going into staple. There you go. Lovely. And Marnie is probably better than research in my opinion. Let's just make that clear. I think Marnie has been more powerful than research in this format, which is crazy. But yeah, okay. I don't know why I didn't put Marnie. I think the Marnie's pride thing, do you know what? It is what it is. Marnie's a staple. We're just going to get through that now. Riley is next. Reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and have your opponent choose 2 of them. Discard the chosen cards and put the remaining cards into your hand. Having your opponent choose is terrible, right? They could just see the best cards, but like, okay, get rid of them. Let's give you the trash cards. It is like the worst version of Horus Experiment. It isn't good. I mean, you're drawing at least 3 cards, so to speak, so there's that. But just letting your opponent choose is bad, man. It's going to go into the bin, mate. Rose, attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon VMAX. This saw play in Rayquaza. Also to note, it does discard the hand again. So kind of similar to Peony. I'm going to say it's going in Meh. I think Meh is probably the one that we're going to do here. Maybe I would say with the Caboos and the Adventures Discovery, that's probably correct. Roseanne's back up now. Choose 1 or more. Shuffle a Pokemon into your discard pile into your deck. Shuffle a Pokemon tool from your discard pile into your deck. Shuffle a Stadium card from your discard pile into your deck. Shuffle an Energy from your discard pile into your deck. It would have been great if you could choose all of them at the same time, but no, it's one or the other. It's the only way to actually recover, apart from Silene, if I'm correct, special energy cards. But other than that, this card it's too specific with a lot of things. It's like, okay, I understand what you're trying to do here. You're trying to be an all-rounder and go, right, okay, let me just cover these grounds for recovery. But I think it needs multiple effects at once for it to have been good compared to just choose one of either of them. Because I think if any of these were a supporter card itself, it would still be pretty trash. So I think Roseanne's just going to go into the bin. I would say probably around here. Roxanne is a lie. It is going to the bottom of the bin. Done. Schoolboy, draw 2 cards of your opponent's exactly 1, 3, or 5. You draw 2 more. This is going to coincide with the schoolgirl. I'm going to put it into Meh, probably above Alistair, I think. You know, you got to play these cards together, right? Because it's draw 4 depending on the prize card trade, and you know, you can draw big hands and stuff like that, but yeah, it's just Meh. Serena, this one is going to go straight into great, my friend. I think up here. Being able to discard up to 3 cards from your hand and draw until you have 5, or gust a Pokemon V into the active. What's interesting is this is obviously going to see less play come Scarlet and Violet because, of course, it's specifically V. And when you're in a format with EXs and Vs, it's far less consistent. But now it's very, very decent and definitely seeing play all over the place. So definitely up there, very strong. Shauna, shuffle, draw 5. Interestingly enough, it's going into Meh. One of those cards you just see running around with Hop a lot of the times. Just shuffle, draw 5 has always been about. But yeah, it's okay, not that great. Honestly, you're better off even playing Judges at times when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, Sydney is next. Your opponent reveals their hand. Discard up to 2 in any combination of Pokemon tool cards, special energy cards, and stadium cards from it. Again, see him play in a lot of disruption. In fact, see him play in, you know, what's that deck? The Yveltal deck. Really, really strong against the lurks of Lugia and stuff like that. So I'm going to put it in good again, but probably on the bottom end. Here's one I didn't know existed. Cybold? Choose up to 2 of your Rapid Strike Pokemon and heal 60 damage from each of them. It's first of archetypal, and second of terrible. Skylar, effectively an Arita, but for any kind of deck. But Arita's very good because of the Inteleon archetype. This doesn't have anything really to support it, and it's just search your hand for a trainer card. If you're going to search it for a supporter card, it might as well be that supporter card. Instead of slotting a Skylar in, slot that supporter in. If you're looking for item cards, then I guess it makes a bit more sense, but really, is it worth it? I'm not sure. Usually you play this when it comes to stage 2s, because of course you can just guarantee the rare candy. But other than that, that's really it. So in the format it's currently in, it's just not good. Might be decent post-rotation. Oh no, I think it's a D marker, so it's not even going to go into the post-rotation. So I think probably with the likes of, I would say above Pal, I think that looks about right. Sonia! Search deck for 2 basic Pokemon or up to 2 basic energy cards. Reveal them, put to your hand, shuffle your deck. In the early starts of the Sword and Shield era, this definitely saw some interesting, definitely drew some eyes and has just not seen any interest at all since. Mainly because this was a great way to just, develop your board a little bit. But other than that, yeah, that was kind of it. And since then, it's just died off. So I think it's going to go into the mix of in the bin, maybe next to Lady because it searches Pokemon as well. So yeah, we'll go there. Although, let's not disrespect it. Maybe it's on the higher end. Maybe it's above Choi. Swordwood and Shieldbert is next. Choose a trainer card from your discard pile, then ask your opponents if you may put it into your hand. If yes, put a card into your hand. If no, draw 3 cards. A very, tempting effect, right? Let me just recover anything I want, but my opponent decides if I do. And if they don't want, obviously they know if you need that piece to win, they're not gonna let you do it. But it ain't gonna happen. They're just gonna draw 3. It's a decent effect on draw 3, but again, opponent choosing is never something that you should do, right? Because they're obviously going to try and find the worst outcome for you. And usually that means it's just no point in playing a supporter in general. So I would say probably, okay, we'll put it above Pink Lady. I think a lot of this in the bin, I think a lot of it's just trash now. A lot of it don't pay too much attention to. All right, let's just pretend this doesn't exist. So I tell you what, I think I've ruined it a lot. Guys, the list just keeps getting bigger. I can't control it. It's getting bigger. We have 8 supporters left to go. We're nearly there. Team Yell Grunt. Put in energy cards attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon into their hand. You have Flannery pretty much doing something similar. You have Sydney also removing cards from hand. It kind of is in the middle between the two, but it's not really that great. I think it's going to go in the bin. Maybe it'll go into meh because it still is decent, I guess. But you put it into their hand, they could just attach it next turn, and I think that's probably why. Okay, I'm going to put it in the bin, maybe below Sonia. Team Yell's Cheer. Shuffle up to 3 of any combination of Pokemon and supporter cards except Team Yell's Cheer from your discard pile into your deck. Supporter recovery, Pokemon recovery in one mix. Not really needed when you have Pal Pads and Rods doing the same thing. I know obviously it's 2 of them together, but for your supporter for turn, it's just not good. It's just going to go in the bin. Obviously, Roxanne is always going to be at the bottom, so we're going to put it there. Thornton has seen play again in Disruption and also in some other variants of Ditto decks and stuff like that. Definitely going to go into the meh, maybe into the higher end of it, maybe where Burn It is, I think. It allows you to choose a basic Pokemon from discard pile and just switch it with the basic Pokemon in play, which is very, very solid. Volo, I bet you didn't realize about this one. Discard 1 of your bench Pokemon for your Pokemon and all cards attached. Jesus Christ. A great way to get rid of your Crobats and Luminion, but why? I guess, I don't know. I don't know about this one. It hasn't seen play at all, but definitely was brought up in discussion upon its release because it's you could just get rid of a Crobat? That could be a game changer. But just not been necessary enough. So we'll put it underneath, maybe above I would say above, let's put it below Lance, because it has some use case, but very, very rare. Wallace is next. Draw 3 cards. Your opponent may draw a card if they do draw 1 more card. So it's just draw 4, but you give your opponent 1 extra card. Why? It's just why? There's just no point. There's so much better draw 4s available anyway. There's just no point. You're helping your opponent out as well. It's still draw 4, so we can't regard that. I'll put it below Riley. Worker, draw 3 and discard a Stadium. This one's probably going up into the meh because Stadiums are very strong. Path to the Peak is very strong, and having an outs to get rid of it through the effect of a draw supporter card is decent. I would say it's not up there with the other top tier draw 3s. But is okay. I would put it above, let's put it above Bruno. I think that's okay. Zenith Resolve, a card that unfortunately is a bit of a letdown compared to what I thought it was going to be. You could play this card only if you discard 2 other cards from your hand. Draw a card for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play. So you could effectively draw 6 cards from discarding 2, but your opponent has to have a full bench. This card might be stronger now than it ever has been, but considering that there's so much stronger cards anyway, it's not even necessary to be played. So it's kind of in an awkward area. So it's going to go into meh, I think. Can be really strong, but is just, again, relying on your opponent a bit. But less so than, things like Copycat and stuff. So I think maybe around about here looks about right. Zizu, the last card. Draw cards until you have 1 more card in your hand than your opponent. It's trash. Great if your opponent has a big hand, but they don't. You're done for. It's the same as Caitlyn. So that's going to go pretty much where Caitlyn is, probably lower than that. Is it Caitlyn? I don't remember the name. Right, so there you have it. The full list of all of the cards in the Sword and Shield era. Obviously, just pretend there's a Marnie up here, okay? There's a Marnie there. Marnie is definitely in the staple. I just forgot to put it in because I'm a dum-dum. Let me know what you think of this list, what differences you would have, if you agree with them. And you know what? In fact, I might actually be able to provide this list in the description down below for you to try out for yourself and try and see what you would do differently. It'd be very, very interesting to see your takes on maybe Twitter or even on YouTube videos themselves. But ultimately, this is going to be my final decision. It is my opinion ultimately. So obviously, I'm going to get a lot of things wrong here and there. But at the end of the day, it's just for a bit of fun. And I'll tell you what, this is incredible. Like the amount of supporter cards available during the Sword and Shield era is wild. But also, interesting enough, so many cards just go in the bin. That's just the nature of it. That's the hierarchy of supporters, so to speak. The best are at the top, and there's a few amount, and then it trickles down to the bottom where there's a ton of terrible cards. It's just the way it works, unfortunately. Anyway, enough of that. I'm waffling now. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, we're going to leave it there. If there's anything else you want me to start making tier lists on, let me know, because I do quite enjoy this. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. Do you like it and enjoy? Please do subscribe for more. But most importantly, take care of yourself and peace.